Start. Welcome. Hi. How you doing?
Oh,
I'm going on 2 hours sleep. So wish me
you look
luck.
yawny today.
I'm a little yawny today. I am. I drove back from the show last night and I got in at 5.
Mm, mm.
But I'm all right. I'm gonna be fine.
You're rocking on a nap right now?
Yes, essentially. Let's see. Okay. Can I close this? Can I close that? I can't. Okay. And now I need to open up the chat window for.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Now, live from Chicago, the Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
Hal Sparks, actor, comedian, and multimedia personality.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hal Sparks.
All right, let's do this.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Man, oh, Shevitz, am I a little wiped out today because we had a great Nerd Halen show last night. It was super fun. It was lovely seeing.
And kudos to you. I didn't realize it was a Nerd Halen show. Your voice is in tip-top condition considering you just belted a few hours ago.
Yeah, I did. I did 2 whole shows with DLR and Sammy songs.
Ugh.
Yeah, and I'm on 2 hours of sleep, and I'm still here, and I'm still, but I can even
It's still going to be funnier
speak.
than me. I got 9 hours sleep.
Right, that's the problem. See, I think that's the hang up or whatever. That's what Trump was right about. 6 hours of sleep is plenty for anybody in their 70s. It's not unhealthy at all. It's not why he's having to get intravenous stuff on the back of his hand like elderly people often have to do because they can't find a decent vein in your arm. And he's got that gnarly spot that it's been in all the pictures, and he's still giving the thumbs up. And it's got a giant, like,
Just a purple
he's got an old
skin
dude bruise. Nothing. There's no
Yeah.
shame in that except for the fact that you pretend it doesn't exist. The only shame in those moments is when you endanger yourself by pretending that that's not a real issue. Thank you, Lisa Miamore, for the super chat. By the way, welcome. If you're watching, listening throughout the globe, you can support the show on Facebook with stars, on super chats on YouTube, and of course on Twitch. You can sub, which would be fantastic. We would love that.
I'm going to smash that like.
Yes, you know what? And we can both do that. I'm not above liking my own show.
You got to like your own. I
it's-
like my own posts on Facebook frequently. I'm like, come on,
yeah,
people. Let's do good stuff.
everybody likes the the a whiff of their own brand. So let's. So anybody who watches my regular show knows that I did not have a show yesterday in the afternoon because I had to go do this gig and I had to drive to it. But I did a morning show, and normally on my morning show, Johnny Million, it's a philosophical gathering. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at infotainmentwars.com and at flank.com, aka twitch.tv/HalSparks. I get up and I look through what's trending on the interwebs, and we see what's on Twitter and sometimes Facebook. Sometimes it's news stories, but it's really sort of just to jump off into a conversation. Because my afternoon show, I'm reacting to clips and doing that kind of stuff. So this gives me a little more room to move, right? So I get up and I don't want to tip myself off to what's going on. You know what I mean? I try to avoid looking at. I don't open Twitter as best I can on those mornings now, so that I'm not, I like to catch myself by surprise. However, in this particular instance, the Hunter Biden Washington Post story had broke, where they literally put out an article.
Who's the
How?
cat behind you, Hal?
Oh,
Who's the cat behind you?
That's Chip. He's running around behind me. He'll jump up in my lap at some point. Don't worry.
Okay.
Um, Chip. There he goes. He sees you. Okay, so I saw that article, and it said literally, the title of the article was how the Washington Post analyzed the Hunter Biden laptop. Well, as you know, as many people who watch my show have done, I have called into question the very existence of the Hunter Biden laptop. I don't believe it. I am not a conspiracy theorist about this. I have just never seen it. Now, I have seen in my life, officially, more pictures of Johnny Million's lunch than I have seen of Hunter Biden's laptop. I have seen, right? I have seen more Bigfoot photos than I have seen of the Hunter Biden laptop. I have seen more what I would hope are credible videos of UFOs on many Ancient Aliens special on Netflix in the wee hours in the morning than I have seen pictures of the Hunter Biden laptop. The Hunter Biden laptop that, by the way, I was told for months that it was given by the legally blind owner of a Mac repair shop who can only see 4 inches in front of his face. That is literally how far he can see. That Hunter Biden, he thinks, came in and dropped it off, he thinks, and signed a receipt, he thinks, and never came back for it. And it sat there, and then he got suspicious because it had a Beau Biden Foundation sticker on it, which, you know, can, like any laptop that's got an anti-cancer charity on it is up to no good. Let me tell you right now. If I see,
crack that bad boy open.
Red cross, red flag. That's what I say. So, so he, of course, turns it over to the FBI, and he has proof that he turned it over to the FBI because he has a printout of a photo of a receipt that someone signed when they took it away, whoever that person was. Now, I'm not saying those were Russian agents in the United States posing as FBI agents, giving him a forged document that he could sit on after he needed it. I'm not saying that he didn't have that document until 6 to 10 days after he was asked by a reporter to have it.
Right.
And that the signature doesn't match Hunter Biden's signature at all because Russians did it for him. I'm just saying that's actually the material case. Also, I am saying, however, that the Hunter Biden laptop doesn't exist. And in saying so, it's a pretty broad claim. I will admit that's walking the plank infotainment style. I will, by making that assertion, simply based on the fact that it is 2022 and I have never seen a picture of it. Certainly not a picture of it being held by the very people who claim they had it on their person during the entirety of the election, including Rudy Giuliani, who said repeatedly he had it at his place until the FBI raided his place and it was nowhere to be found. He did have a laptop that belonged to his ex-wife that he apparently had possession of. It was hidden behind his couch and was used as leverage what was on it in his divorce. But he didn't have the Hunter Biden laptop. Now, what he did have...
We all know that Hunter Biden actually had one of those badass gaming towers.
Yes, that's right.
That lights up from the inside. So all of this is nonsense.
Yes, absolutely. It's got LGB bars in it and stuff like that. And when and then if you die, the whole thing turns red.
Systems.
Yeah, exactly. It's liquid cooled. And because if you're gonna run, if the big guy is gonna run a giant crime enterprise, he's gonna do it with like Alienware and a really cool...
not on a Chromebook.
Not on a Chromebook. Come on. So I call BS on this. And then here comes this Washington Post article that all of a sudden says that the Washington Post analyzed the Hunter Biden laptop. Well, my goodness, game changer. I guess I'm about to eat crow, or my words are a meal of crow as the main dish and my words as a side, mixed in with Brussels sprouts and raisins to give them some bitter and sweet mix. And so I pop open that article and I peruse it. If anybody wants to watch it, they can watch the Friday morning show where I go kind of in depth about this. And I challenge anybody at the Washington Post or the New York Times to challenge any of my contentions or any of the things that I bring up when I go over that article. But over the course of it, there are lines like, the hard drive is a mess. Now you're thinking, hard drive? By golly, I thought I was under the impression this was a laptop. What do you mean hard drive? Well, they don't have the laptop. They were given a hard drive by a Republican activist that has been copied over 7 times from the original, at least, which God knows how many times that was copied, to the point where they cannot verify the chain of custody of anything on that laptop except the junk mail. And that's only because the junk mail was sent out on a certain date by Google. That's how they know. That's it.
Anybody knows who's seen the classic documentary by Michael Keaton, Duplicity?
Yes, sure.
That a copy of a copy of a copy. It gets less and less reliable.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of my favorite documentaries of the late 80s.
It is great. Also, anybody who's ever had an audio cassette copy of an audio cassette copy of an audio cassette copy of something knows this. Well, when it comes to chain of custody on certain like emails and those kind of things, I don't want to encourage any awful hackers that might be out there, but they probably already know this. So I'm not
Russia, if you're listening.
If you're listening, the actual recipe for digital forgery is as such. You take 1 cup of real emails. They don't even have to be about your subject. They can simply be Bed Bath & Beyond coupons, Zillow stuff, whatever. 1 cup of hacked emails, meaning that you hacked into a company and sent emails from that company to whatever hard drive you're concocting while you have control of that. And 1 cup of readily available, easily hacked, either pictures from phones or deep fakes or whatever. And then you take that and you throw it all on the same drive. Now, anybody at a forensics unit and even the Delaware State Police could tell you that this is complete garbage if they got a hold of it. So you got to copy it. And then you got to copy that copy. And then you got to copy the copy of the copy. And then you got to do this about 30 times. And then you can sell the hard drive through a Russian sock puppet in Ukraine for the price tag of about $3 million. And Rudy Giuliani will pay you $5 for it because his boss wrote Art of the Deal. And who wouldn't overpay for something $2 million? Fine. And then you got to tell them this will work, but you got to copy it and copy it and copy it and copy it and never give this copy away. And if you're going to give anything out, better to just print stuff from it and hand it out physically because they can't check any of the metadata. And voila, if that plan isn't what works out. And by the end of the Washington Post story, and we got to take a break, but do you know why? Do you know why that story broke? Why it is such a mangled mess? Why it came out late Thursday night, early Friday? Do you have any idea?
I don't know if this is related, but I did hear that the jobs report was probably better than people expected.
That would be my first guess too. Non-farm payrolls grew by 431,000 jobs in March. The unemployment rate declined to 3.6%, below expectations. It went lower than expected.
Because the Republican Party roots against America.
America, all the time. And by the way, the first quarter ended with Biden and the Biden administration being credited with adding 1.7 million jobs. The largest amount of job growth in the last 14 months of any president in history. We'll be back right after this.
Wow.
You know what the leading industry was that added jobs?
I don't.
Leisure and hospitality. People are going places.
Perfect. People going back to work because people are traveling again.
That's right. People are going on vacations. People are going to hotels. People are staying in, they're eating out in restaurants. Thank you, Act. So,
Hickory hit us with another nice super chat for 50. Just
oh, my love, thank you.
No huge birthday celebrations. Just
good
awesome.
support. And Rocky Mountain Mike, thank you so much. And I almost felt like for that super chat as well. Rocky Mountain Mike, I mentioned him yesterday on Steph. Because there was this story about dolphins apparently were using puffer fish to get high. They were using blowfish. They're
really hard to keep lit underwater too.
They really are. It's true. But on the other end, you're inside a giant bong in theory. You're in a water bong.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But apparently, if you annoy one of these fish, it puts out enough toxin to kind of give you a slight buzz, as it were. And and so apparently dolphins have been engaged in this for quite some time, where they bump it around. They'll knock it around with their nose, and it'll puff out a little toxin. Get away from me. And that's enough to get them high.
Makes perfect sense. Like most poisons get you a little high.
Well, that's it's supposed to make you dizzy. I mean, that's what drunk is. It's what ferment. Your body's like, don't stand up, don't move, don't eat, just start throwing up. Anything short of that, though, is like, I don't know. This isn't half bad, I suppose, because the paralysis part your body's doing is trying to save you.
Attention! Stop what you're doing. Because we're coming back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Oh my God!
They went a little crazy with it, and I appreciate it.
Now let's get back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back. Paige, thank you for the super chat. She says, I can doctor any email anyone sends me, and heck, I may have the laptop here in Philly. Who says I don't? That's true. I can't. The Washington Post, the New York Times, nor I can prove or disprove that Paige has the laptop because they've never laid eyes on it, and neither have I, and neither have you. Act in our chat sends a $5 super chat that says, that was so rude he could launder an extra $2 million for his boss. Right. That was just to flow it through. They probably loaned it back to him through Deutsche Bank. Like, while you're over there, can you launder an extra $2 million? And Rocky Mountain Mike, thank you so much for pass the puffer on the left-hand side. We were discussing that on Stephanie Miller's show. Yeah. I know. That was the first thing that occurred to me, is they were telling me the dolphins get high on pufferfish story on Steph's show yesterday, which was a good time. And thanks to everybody again who came to the Sexy Liberal show. Now, in relation to that, I asked Johnny Million during the break, what the number one job that came back, what added more jobs than anything else?
Yeah, and I didn't know.
Retail and hospitality. Leisure and hospitality, followed by retail. Leisure and hospitality, people are going out to dinner. People are going to, staying in hotels for business and travel.
Cruises.
Resorts and cruises, exactly. They're the ones coming back. And because of the amount of herd immunity that we have from natural infection and the amount of vaccine people and the availability.
Yeah, which industries were hurt more than those during
That's right.
the lockdowns?
Those are the ones that were essentially collapsed first.
Yeah.
Followed by professional and business services, hence the hotel travel, one would think, and retail trade, which again is the one that's supposedly hurt the most by the energy crunch we're in right now. And now I'm not saying that once Trump lost, there's a case of emergency break glass plan that America and the West's adversaries have, where they choke oil supply on their own and try to raise the price until they get people favorable to their methodology back in office. I'm not saying that's a strategy. I'm saying that if I was an awful person and I ran an awful country, I would insist on it. That's what I'm saying. Right? Now,
and that's because you're a method actor.
That's true, yes. If I ever played a dictator, it would be a long and arduous process. I would have to rise to power through some sort of violent coup, maintain power for far too long, fade, after the international sanctions drove me into exile. And even though I had killed half of my own population, die comfortably in my bed in a villa someplace in the middle of nowhere.
That's a red carpet speech I want to hear.
Fat and happy. Right. Yep. It's why it's difficult to method actor a dictator. Although it'd be, as far as the emotional traits, very easy for some actors to do. Some actors, and I've heard this under good authority, could pull those kind of roles off simply because they sort of live a diva-esque lifestyle and are under the impression that they have the right to physically attack people for stuff that they say. I don't know if there's any validity to that. And I certainly hope not, because that would be reprehensible behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But I am saying that it's potentially true. Now, speaking of losers, vicious
I'm listening.
losers who, habitually lose. Speaking of people who can't stop losing. Oh, Daphne, thank you for the super chat. She's and it's really hard to keep it lit underwater. Johnny Million is not only smart and sexy, but dang funny too. Be still my heart. Look at that.
Daphne.
Carl says, don't abuse pufferfish. One of them could be Martin Scorsese. So, speaking though of absolute losers, Donald Trump, the news on his story, the news on his White House, because apparently at one point he was in the White House in control of all of the levers of power in the greatest democracy on the planet, and was technically, and I quote, the leader of the free world, with, irony and air quotes galore.
Mm-hmm.
There was this 7-hour gap in the White House switchboard call logs. Now, a lot of folks were making the case that this could be indicative of they destroyed call logs, or they worked around it, or there was
that's
subterfuge.
what I thought.
Right. Well, that's certainly possible. The more likely case is that they just didn't use the switchboard. And it's kind of one of the most amazing aspects is that nobody did in the Oval Office. Because during the January 6th, because, there's been stories about burner phones. Maybe he uses that. He pretended not to know what one is, which is just ridiculous. You had John Boehner coming on and saying boner phones, which was just beautiful on, I believe, CNN, which is not the same thing, for the record. If you have a boner phone and the battery lasts more than 4 hours, see a doctor. But apparently, some people are making the case that, maybe he's involved in sort of subterfuge. Maybe he's, they tore up the logs or hid who he contacted and all that stuff. I find the most suspicious part being that during that 7 hours, nobody else was using the switchboard from the Oval Office. That effectively Trump is alone. This is during the time when he filmed the video, which hopefully we will get the outtakes of. Apparently he shot that video. We love you. You're very special. Now go home and be proud of the chaos you created today. That he apparently did that a few times and wouldn't tell them to go home, which is they had to do it again.
Force him to do that part.
Yes, they had to tell him. They had to force him to get him to tell them to stop. And if the January 6th committee reveals anything that will be damning in the eyes of the American public more than anything else, that will be the sign that here's the multiple outtakes of this dummy trying to not say leave the Capitol and go home. The one he released was bad enough. This is also worse. Okay, but my personal belief is that it isn't strange that Trump didn't use the White House switchboard to call anyone, because he was avoiding calls from his own children. Apparently, they were having to call other people to reach him. He was watching the television and gleefully enjoying the fact that some of his followers would, invert Jim Jones themselves on his behalf, right? That, that Ashley Babbitt would take a bullet for him was a gleeful moment for him. And he was amazed, apparently, according to reports by a lot of the people that were around, who mysteriously didn't use the switchboard during that time. I think that's the part that's screwy. The part where the rest of the people in the White House weren't from the Oval Office, from the outer office, and any of that. But the idea that there's fresh reporting in the Daily Beast that Donald Trump's White House iced out official record keepers in the days leading up to the January 6th Capitol riot. Multiple sources with knowledge of the congressional probe into the attempted insurrection told CNN Trump's presidential diarist was interviewed by the House Select Committee about 2 weeks ago and said Trump officials began providing noticeably fewer details about the president's activities starting on January 4th, according to the outlet. Beginning on January 5th, the diarist didn't receive the annotated calls and notes they normally get. And this was a dramatic departure. That is all out of the ordinary. Under normal circumstances, the White House diarist is privy to phone logs, the president's movements, and all notes from the Oval Office. From the 4th to the 6th, they stopped providing those details. Jeez. Because they knew they were up to some hinky stuff. If it was just the 6th, that's one thing, right? Because they're like, this is horrifying. Maybe we're embarrassed. We don't want to talk about it. The fact it was the days leading up to it presents a knowledge of criminal activity, an awareness of guilt that's more spectacular than just them hiding from their own shame or everyone trying to hide the president's missteps on the 6th. We'll take a break. We'll be back after this. Yeah. You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT820.com. Also, the show is available on the Sexy Liberal Podcast Network. They cut it up into little hour-long chunks, which I think you could probably
digest Foggy Mountain or Foggy Ozark seems to think that you found a pufferfish filter.
Yes, I did. No, I'm just puffy from being up late. We'll be back.
No. No, she said you were goofing around with like Snapchat type filters and one made you look like a pufferfish.
Yeah, it's been a while. That's true.
Poor Foggy's like, no. That's not what I meant. Do you think you can find it?
Let's see.
Do you think you can get your audience completely wasted?
Maybe. Hold on one second.
Foggy's like, you're getting me into trouble.
Let's see this. I personally, I feel like this is the best I can do. Don't be afraid to pass me around. Don't be afraid, you're gonna get down. I'm showing everyone but Johnny Million right now.
Oh.
Hold on, I'll show you.
Is it on YouTube?
Hold on, you don't have to. Hello, Johnny Million. How are you today?
That's amazing.
I will puff some toxin and push you away, and you can enjoy my little wind from my butt, and that will make you feel like you're out of your nut. Hey, buddy. Hi.
Holy moly.
I feel so... It's weird. I feel so strange, and yet so good. Did you feel that?
That looks insane.
It looks terribly disturbing. I love you. Now relax, okay?
I cannot relax with you looking like this. Wait, I'm gonna do something completely like analog and take a picture of this.
I do believe it's working. Good. I can ease your pain, get you on your feet again. There is no pain you are receiving. a distant show on the horizon. You are only washing round in waves.
Only on 1 day a week. I get it. I'm gonna have to.
Nobody's gonna get this at home.
Garage band and start sawing something together.
Okay.
This is the Hal Sparks Show. Wow, and a guitar note, and then progressive, and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Hey, Hal, did you mean something like this?
This is the Hal Sparks Show. Wow, and a guitar note, and then progressive, and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
You know,
The Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Yeah, it's
some
gonna be good.
some stuff you just gotta watch the live stream for, and you can always watch it later. It's okay. You can enjoy us on WCPT.
Yeah, if you're listening to this on the radio, it is worth going in about 35 minutes to what's going to be posted on YouTube.
Something
tougher Hal
in that zone somewhere in there is something worth being around. I'm just saying. Andrea, thank you so much. Did we get it? Yes. Thank you for the super chat, Andrea. And everybody will let me know when we have 666 people in the chat so that we can freak out the right wingers by doing 666 super chats when that becomes appropriate. Every day, it becomes clearer and clearer that like moron Watergate, for lack of a better phrase, gets clearer and clearer every day. Like, we know this was all a setup. We also know that all the stories about the Hunter Biden laptop or anything even remotely related to that, and the strong arming of Zelensky, withholding funding for javelins from him, specifically knowing that if they did it long enough, the White House could delay the receipt of javelins to the Ukrainians by almost a year.
Javelins.
Yeah, these are
pretty archaic. That's a very analog kind of weapon.
Well, it's the anti-tank weapon that has turned the tide more than any other factor.
You're not talking about like the Olympic javelin?
No. Although I do hear that the Russian javelin catching team is going for the gold this year. But it becomes increasingly clear that the whole point behind the Rudy Giuliani flying to Ukraine to give in person the real ask of Zelensky and his team from the president as his unofficial cabinet member, but his personal lawyer, is going to go there and speak to a foreign leader and deliver a personal message that's without translators present, without any official government note takers present, because he is not an employee of the government. In the same way that Ivanka and Jared could go to the Middle East and make deals on behalf of themselves and the president, make hundreds of millions of dollars, and strong arm these countries as semi-official representatives of the president of the United States, insofar as, well, if you don't play nice with these guys, I'm not going to like it, but not as actual functioning members of the government that go through all those channels. That Trump tried all these things while he was in office. And thank God he stunk at it. Thank God the coup was run by morons. The cover-up was run by morons. The plan and the planning and the tactics, everybody involved in this, top to tails, fish stinks from the head. Trump was a complete idiot. Continues to be to this day. Which brings me to, of course, the fact that Johnny Million has more followers on Truth Social than almost any other person on Truth Social. And I know what you're thinking, but Johnny Million's not on Truth Social. Exactly. Truth Social has to be, without a doubt, the biggest dud in the history of social media. Donald Trump's own...
I haven't heard about it at all.
Right. The use of the site is down 73 to 84%, depending on who you talk to or don't talk to. In the first 2 months of it, the desire to be on there in yet another right-wing echo chamber after there's already Parler, there's already Gab, there's already Telegram has turned into a right-wing cesspool of garbage. There's already Get her. Oh man, come on now. Get her done. And the fact that how could Truth Social fail when it's being run by former right-wing congressperson and note carrier from congressional Republicans to the president, and I guess low-end subterfuge moron Devin Nunes. I recall, and I'm sure you do too, Johnny Million, the idea that Donald Trump ran on the government is full of idiots. All these career politicians are morons. They don't know anything about business. They don't know anything about trade. They don't know anything about ISIS. Donald Trump knows this, and he knows all the best people. The best people. The best people. Hashtag the best people. And when he gets into office, if we can have a flashback to 2015/16, all he's got to do is tap these super smart people on the shoulder, and they're going to join him in the White House, and not so they can become, oligarchs themselves and just ratchet up their influence, not because they can't stand him, but oh my gosh, to be that close to the levers of power. Not because the Louis DeJoys of the world run an alternative to the post office that's business would improve greatly if no one could use or trust the post office anymore. Not if they were Rex Tillerson, who'd received like the best buddy of Vladimir Putin award for how pally-wow he was with Russian oil and gas industry, that he could continue to do that even though he refers to the president himself while working for him as an effing moron. But still the best people.
In the chat said they're all the best people until he asked to say I've never met them.
Oh, yeah, that's the other aspect. They are the best people until they screw up royalty, and then they were magically referred to him by somebody else, by other best people. Really knew them. He comes very well recommended. Everybody really very respected person. The storyline of effectively typecasting. A lot of people, Hollywood gets a bad rap. And certainly in my industry and my end of things as an actor, people complain about this all the time. Typecasting. Oh, it's terrible. I swear, you're on a series playing a doctor. The next 3 shows you're going to get offered is playing a doctor again. That's how I can only play this same, I'm never going to break out of John Boy Walton unless they make another Country Boy series where the lovable 70s dude with the mole on his face and a friendly demeanor. I'm never going to work again because typecasting. Meanwhile, projects cost millions of dollars. It's hard enough to get anything off the ground. There are, thousands of projects that never see the light of day every single year because they can't even start. Mm-hmm. And then you get to the casting phase. Are you going to go, I don't know if this actor is believable by an audience playing a doctor on this one role, but I think we should take, a chance at it. What do you think? What do you think we gamble on him? Or the guy, Doogie Howser's available. What do you think? We've got 6 cast members of St. Elsewhere who are available now. We could go with one of them, or we could go with this guy who was great on this other show, but I don't know if he can play this, but let's let him stretch. What do you think actually happens? So right. Is typecasting rough to deal with? Yes. Is it strange or weird? No. And you'll often hear the phrase central casting. Guys, right out of central casting. Central casting, by the way, is the
Guilty.
extras.
I say that all the time. Whenever I see something that's so hilariously cliche, I'll be like, that dog is out of central casting.
Right. Well, Trump often refers to people who are perfect for the job as, especially when it's about being TV ready, as right out of central casting. Mostly it has to do with macho dudes. If you notice, it's generals.
Or blonde women.
Nope.
No, macho dudes?
Macho dudes, like none of the, I don't think I've ever seen him refer to, and he may have, but he usually does not refer to women as being right out of central casting. What he means is TV generals, TV politicians, men, largely men. Because to him, who would cast a woman in any of these roles? You know what I mean? Like, think about it. Who are you talking about? And so when he says this, what he means is they look good on camera. They've got a name that sounds like, oh my God, H.R. McMaster.
That sounds great.
That sounds great. And look at him. He's got a face that looks like it's cut out of granite. He never stops scowling. He looks like a human Sam the Eagle. Hired. Can he do the job? I don't care. Is he good at it? Does he agree with your policy, sir? Who doesn't? He doesn't. And by the way, what do you mean agree with my policies? They follow orders. That's the great thing about civilian control of the military. I don't have to listen to them. As a matter of fact, if they come up with something I don't agree with, it's even cooler that I'm telling this granite-faced Sam the Eagle macho dude from Central Casting what time it is. Look at me. Anybody could agree with their generals. I'm just going to and I will. I mean, don't get me wrong. If they tell me at any moment this will affect my poll numbers, if they tell me my poll numbers will take a huge hit to get out of Afghanistan, we can just punt that till I'm not running for election again, which is exactly what he did. So, yes. So Nevitz Forever says, Hal, are you describing Ginny Thomas's firing policies? This is one of the craziest parts of the Ginny Thomas story. We got to take a break. When we come back, I want to discuss that. Because, wow. The fact that Ginny Thomas is the wife of a sitting SCOTUS justice, but is bad enough. The fact that she was in a cult when she was younger and she's effectively straight up QAnon now, disturbing enough. The fact that her husband says, yes.
She's in a cult?
Oh, yeah. That's, the one where everybody strips off their clothes and everybody judges everybody. It's a long story. That's bad enough. But apparently she was part of Jan 6 and was part of this. Do you have people around you, Mr. President, who aren't loyal? We'll be back right after this. It's the House Park Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
When I search Ginny Thomas cult, I get a Mother Jones article. The headline says, why you should care that Ginny Thomas is bonkers.
Right.
Thank you, Mother Jones.
Oh, this is so,
crap, it was written by David Corn. There you go.
Right. There it is. This is, there's some stuff in here. Let me see if I can send you this real quick.
Coming back in 20.
Thanks.
There you go.
Yeah, here you go. Whee!
This is Damian Perdue of Think Theory Radio, Saturdays at 6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I thought there was going to be like a new one every break. I was so excited.
You want more, Hal? We'll give you more. Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820. Hoo-yah!
You know, a lot of things have happened in the last 24 hours. I was on stage last night wearing nerd glasses, singing Van Halen songs. I drove all night just to get back home, like I was in a Bon Jovi song. Just to get back home. I was momentarily a pufferfish on the show today at twitch.tv/HalSparks.
It's been a big day.
Yeah, it's been and Johnny Million and I traded stories about a guy who burps viciously in viral videos by hiding himself in places. And yet nothing is on the crazy scale like the stories around Ginny Thomas, Clarence Thomas's wife, who, among other things, apparently funded buses going to the January 6th insurrection, is full-bore Q at this point, believes anything that comes out of Rudy Giuliani, even if it involves a violent expellation of gas, and which is just a horrifying notion. And apparently, among other things, she wanted to protect Donald Trump from disloyal people around him. She was worried that the people in his White House weren't sufficiently loyal to him. They should be sort of, they were acting like around the Vindman era, they were acting like they had a job to do and took an oath to the American people and not to der Fleeter. So she was upset that they weren't giving him sort of Genghis Khan level loyalty. That they were under the impression that while they served at the pleasure of the president, they served the American people, which of course to Ginny Thomas, wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, is nonsense. And if Trump doesn't technically have the ability to Putin these people and drag them out of the room with a bag over their head and have them disappeared, they should at least fear that that's a possibility. And P.S., let's understand that there is no reason to believe that she doesn't tell Clarence Thomas this all the time about his staff and the people that work with him around the Supreme Court and his security detail. I mean, it's okay. So Rolling Stone has an article. Ginny Thomas pushed Trump to hire someone the White House suspected was a foreign spy. The wife of yes. The wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas gave the former president, quote, insane and unworkable lists of people he should fire and hire, according to a new report from the Daily Beast. Now, understand she's giving him hiring and firing lists. And Trump has recently said that one of the things he's going to implement when he gets back in office, he's been bringing this up at rallies, is the fact that he should, as president, be able to hire and fire anyone in the federal government by fiat. Because that's the only way you're going to get rid of the swamp and the deep state, if the president, as an executive decision, like the CEO of the entire federal government, can hire and fire people at will. Which, by the way, if you don't think some, right-leaning Republican, that if Rand Paul ever had a shot, because Ron Paul's his dad and there's still a big swing of libertarian-esque Republicans out there, you don't think he wouldn't get in there and go, if I could fire one of them, I could fire all of them, right? Mm-hmm. That basically gutting the federal government wouldn't be the order of the day and would give the Russians something to strategize towards. Ginny Thomas regularly met with Donald Trump while he was president, often providing him lists of people whom he should hire and fire, one of which the White House suspected of being a foreign spy. The latest turn in the MAGA unmasking of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas's wife, who we learned last week sent a series of text messages, we talked about some of those last week, pressuring Chief of Staff Mark Meadows to work to overturn the 2020 election, comes by way of the Daily Beast report published Friday. Now, this is... and like we all knew that within there were people as staffers in the West Wing, among other things, knew their afternoon would be ruined and Trump would be worked into, quote, fits of vengeful rage. A fit of jealous rage. We all knew that within minutes after Ginny left her meeting with the president, he would start yelling about firing people for being disloyal. When Ginny Thomas showed up, you knew your day was wrecked. Now, I think that's probably true everywhere. You know what I mean? People,
not just in the White House.
Yeah, no. People at diners, dry cleaners, people like at Hobby Lobby. Ever since she became a welcome guest at Trump's residences, Thomas, an influential and longtime conservative activist and the wife of Clarence Thomas, had perfected a proven formula of enthralling and manipulating the president's emotions and mood. Again, she was in a cult. Life something. You'll look, Johnny. You were just looking at the article on it.
I never saw the name of the cult.
Yeah, it was one of those like 70s, early 80s cults. And so no surprise that she has the mentality that tips her towards this, unless you actively, I suppose, work. I guess it could be like an addiction, like anything else. Had perfected, on multiple occasions throughout the Trump era, Thomas would show up in the White House, sometimes for a private meeting or a luncheon with the president. She often came armed with written memos of who she and her allies believed Trump should hire from plum jobs and who she thought Trump should promptly purge, that she distributed to Trump and other high-ranking government officials. The fire lists were particularly problematic as they were frequently based on pure conjecture, rumor, or score settling, where even steadfastly MAGA aides were targeted for being part of the deep state. And some other supposedly anti-Trump coalition, the Never Trumpers or the new Never Trumpers or the Ever Trumpers who become Never Trumpers. Because as we know, when the communist regime rolls in, the loyalists to the party who started the whole revolution are the first against the wall. That's you got to wipe out your true believers, because those are the people who will judge you the fastest and the most, right? And so it's no surprise that even in MAGA world, that's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
The higher lists were so often filled with infamous bigots and conspiracy theorists, woefully underqualified names, and obvious close friends of Thomas that several senior Trump aides would laugh at them. That is, until Trump would force his staff to put certain names through official vetting process. 3 sources familiar with the matter said. And these have got to be public record at some time. I mean, we have to. Now, Ted Cruz was allegedly on one of his SCOTUS lists. And by the way, there was never a chance where Ted Cruz is going to be SCOTUS or be president. That's not happening. Ever, please. But there's reason to believe that Trump would put him on that list just to troll him. You know what I mean? Yet another way to let him get his hopes up and smack him down. Like that seems like a kind of cruel.
That's a game he would like.
Yeah, somebody would suggest, like Stephen Miller would suggest this to the president, and he would just enjoy it at the time. These effing lists were so insane and unworkable. These memos would astonish various administration officials, including those working in the White House Presidential Personnel Office, the PPO. Some of these officials noticed that as the Trump term went on, the Thomas list would increasingly feature a disproportionate share of names more suited to an OAN guest lineup than any functional government. To be fair, well before Ginny Thomas became a recurring visitor, Trump would routinely hire people because they had entertained or excited him via Fox News and other cable news appearances. I would say to the Daily Beast article and the writers in that increasingly it became the bottom of the barrel. What used to be, we'll get the hot people off of Fox. Kudlow, we'll bring in Kudlow. He had a show on there. He'll be our econ guy. He'll talk about the budget and stuff to people because he did that on Fox and he could do it in the White House. Then, which is to be expected from how Trump operates. Again, the central casting. Again, the perception of the public versus an equality, aspect of being capable of doing the job. However, as time went on, Trump finds himself being interviewed around the outer colon of the internet that is OAN, RSBN, Real America's Voice, Bannon's War Room and that kind of stuff. And it's no surprise that as that starts to degrade, as far as him, he can't call into Fox like he used to, except Maria Bartiromo's Sunday show, because she has to. Everybody else doesn't want him on unless it's something they can curtail and they can say goodbye to him, they can cut him off. But in the White House, they were like, I don't need to talk to this dude. He's already there, and he's not, especially after he lost, magically, he's in a situation where, the only people he's really watching that totally believe his nonsense are on OAN, are on Newsmax, are on Right Side Broadcasting, and these other super right-wing sites. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, now with 100% more Johnny Million. Of course, you can subscribe at infotainmentwars.com to our YouTube page. That helps us out immensely. Also, twitch.tv/Hal Sparks. If you have Amazon Prime, it doesn't cost you a dime. You can subscribe over there. It's a great way to support the show, or not at all. Also, patreon.com/Hal Sparks, because that's how we gear ourselves up. Thank you so much. We'll be back right after this. Mm-hmm.
Where did you send that last article? I never got it.
To your email, I thought. You said send stuff to your email, I thought.
Yeah, I haven't gotten any of the emails that you've sent. I will text you my email.
That's a great idea. That sounds like a... Yeah, that's what I sent to. Huh.
It's like someone's in my spam filter.
Well, boy. Wop, 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 wop. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe you just don't like me.
Maybe.
Maybe. Do you see it? See there, it sounds.
You are my date. Why is this message in spam? It's similar to other messages that were identified as spam in the past. Not true.
I was corralled. That might not be the normal email address that you're used to getting stuff from. Don't say it out loud, obviously, on the air, but that might be why. I
won't say it out loud on the air, but I will spell it.
Oh, no.
I remember this one, though. Why do you have an S at the end of my name, you goof?
Huh?
It says to John Daniels.
I don't know. Yeah.
In my contacts.
I don't know.
I'm going to let it slide.
You did that.
We'll do it live.
Yeah. I'm blaming you. I don't even know that I wrote that.
I'm sure I did it.
Yeah.
And everybody just heard my real name.
Yeah, it's terrible. No, that Johnny Million's your real name. That's just your born name. I have both. Mine's the same no matter what. But, not everybody can do that. When did I eat David Corn?
You can always tell, like, even a couple days after you eat David Corn.
You can, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, God, this is so funny. And Philip, if you're listening, feel free to join us or call, using the same thing that's normally get you in on the show on. The eCam link I sent you should work fine. Okay, I'm doing pretty good. Get through
hiring memos. Holy guacamole!
What? Oh yeah.
I was just reading the inside Ginny Thomas's insane hiring memos.
Right. Ah. Hey, there he is. Look at that. Hold on one second. Hello, sir. I will bring you in on this in 1 second. Let's see. Man, Johnny, let's see if I can go to this screen. Oh, there we go. And then in this one, we'll do show. Nope. gotta do this. Nope. Hold on. That's the article I was reading. I'll bring you in a second, Philip.
Back in 20.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Making a screen, and then let's see, add this. Yeah, I got to go to this mode, and then I got to go to here, and then I go to.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Puss-faced little pimp stick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
Welcome to the show. So, joining us in a minute will be our dear friend Philip, who is in Lviv, I believe, still at this point in Ukraine, as we approach the 40th day. I believe we're at 38, 39 at this point. It seems kind of incredible that we are at this point, but it is absolutely true. And as we get closer to that date, it becomes increasingly clear that that there is no there for Vladimir Putin. It is we are in a circumstance where I'm curious about, there's a lot of people were asking in the very beginning of this, and let me bring Philip in real quick. 3, 2.
Yep, there I am.
I hear Philip, but not you.
Okay. How about, would that be better? I don't know if that's better or worse.
Don't you change anything, Philip?
Yeah. Let me give me a moment here. Where is this? Where I've got too many things open here. There I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I just can't hear.
There you go. Yep, got it.
Hey, now I hear Hal.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
So
are we all on board?
We are all on board. Everything is good. Welcome, Philip. Glad to see you. Always good to know you're safe and relatively sound. You know, I'm not judging you. You clearly had issues before you left, even. So I don't expect you to come back without any. You know what I mean? You're not gonna. You would never do that to the Ukrainian people. You have too much respect for them. Leave some of your issues there. So, I saw a picture this week of people playing chess in Kiev. Mm-hmm. The idea being that the Russians have pulled out. There's been stories, horrifying stories, of the Russians leaving and just leaving dead bodies in their wake, not just of citizens of Ukraine, but their own soldiers. Simply not taking, and this is not new, by the way. For the record, there used to be the U.S. soldiers who fought in Afghanistan or in Syria and other places like that would say, like, the Afghans or ISIS or Al Qaeda, they come and get their dead. The Russians don't.
No.
This is This has been a constant. Right. Go ahead.
It's even worse than that. We're starting to also hear reports of them booby tapping bodies, so that when people actually go to try and clear out the dead bodies from the streets, and I've seen videos from areas around Kiev where the bodies are just littered all over the place. Civilians, Russian soldiers. It's really depressing. It's been a tough week, Hal. I'm not gonna lie. It's been a tough week.
Yeah. Max Levin, who's a war photographer, was found shot dead. Yep. He's Ukrainian himself, but he, photographed for Reuters and all these other sites, AP and other things. And And it's not surprising that you've got the Russians in a situation where I don't think they're going to want to see they don't want anybody documenting what's going on anymore. Not
absolutely targeting journalists.
Yes,
100%, no question.
And not just because of secrecy, our picture's going to get out of what we're doing. No, none of that. Simply ego and war crimes.
And to intimidate the press corps,
right?
Intimidate the press corps. Hide what they're doing in the shadows.
Yes.
It's the usual litany of stuff. So, but they're definitely targeting. I mean, they're targeting civilians. They're targeting anybody. They're using these thuggish techniques, and I fear one of the reasons it's been such a difficult week is I fear it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Sure.
We've seen them pulling away from Kiev, but not in any significant numbers. And it's an open question as to whether that's to pin down the Ukrainians so that they can't then pivot to the southern coast,
right?
Or whether or not it's because they still have aspirations to try and take the capital, and this is just a stalling technique while they reorganize and resupply. But there's a lot of stuff that's been going on that's really troubling, and I think the false optimism we may have had at the beginning of this last week when we, at least they were sitting down and talking in Turkey, disingenuously from the beginning, but still, any kind of optimism we might have had when we saw the Ukrainian offensives actually working, I don't feel very optimistic right now. I think this war is going to last longer than we had.
I absolutely believe that's the case. I never had, every single time the Russians have started some sort of peace talks, there has been a corresponding act of violence and BSing and shenanigans going on with it, including the possible poisoning or the blasting with a microwave ray. The people in one of the teams having initially one of the very first peace talks close to the Belarus border. Who was there? One of the guys on the Ukrainian team was a Russian sock puppet who was conveying to them the Ukrainian. Every single time they've had one of these get-togethers, there's something else the Russians have pulled while it's happening. It is 100% a magic trick. It is pay attention to this hand while the sleight of hand happens. And it's going to get more desperate as the failures stack up on the Russian side. That's why it started initially as, well, we'll subvert their process, make them look bad. We'll negotiate from a position of strength, and we'll know exactly what they're bringing to the table, or we'll feed stuff to the press that they're willing to do things because somebody at that meeting brought up, well, why don't we just give them Donbass? What if we give them Crimea? And then that ends up being a news story. Well, why does that become a news story? It becomes a news story because the guy they put there in the negotiations brings it up in the meeting and says it was brought up at the meeting.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
So I at no point, once there was a spy amongst them in the first point, and then members of the team were poisoned the second time, and then there's an oligarch at the third gathering. Can we stop? Right. No one is pretending, I believe, in the State Department, the White House, the DOD, no one in our intelligence community is believing any of this garbage about peace talks from the Russians at all. No one in NATO is.
Neither does Zelensky.
No, absolutely not. Everybody is, when Biden was like, they're coming, he's going to do this. He doesn't have a choice. In his own mind, he's driven to do this. There is no out for Vladimir Putin at that point, and it turned out to be true. Right now, there is no version of reality where Putin stays on top, even with this amount of damage for very long. Even if he was like, tomorrow, we'll turn it up. I'm sorry. It's bad. And as a matter of fact, you can have Donbass and Crimea and these areas back. And we're sorry about the whole declaring them independent zones. That was a mistake. If he did that tomorrow, the world wouldn't trust him. They're like, well, he's going to launch nukes at this point. He is not a trustworthy player in this. at all, and never will be. So
yeah, and the whole kerfuffle over Biden saying, "How can this man remain in office?" How can this man remain in office?
Yes.
He's done. He
also
deserves to be a pariah.
It's absurd. And how can this man stay in office is as an exclamation to the Russian people, to even that exclamation works not just to the innocent Russian people who are protesting, who are horrified at what's going on, to the ones that support maybe his efforts in Ukraine, really believe the demilitarization and denazification, but have to look at what's going on in Ukraine and go, well, that clearly wasn't the plan. Obviously, this guy sucks at his job, because if you're trying to denazify and demilitarize Ukraine, the Ukrainians have more tanks now than when they started. What the only time in military history that we know of that happening, because they are taking control of of Russian tanks and using them against them. One guy sold his for $10,000 in citizenship.
Yep. And the Ukrainians have now actually officially made an offer. They've got a sliding scale of what, if you turn in this, we'll give you that. If you turn in this, we'll give you that. They actually put this out to the Russian forces. But the Russians are, I don't know if you've seen this story, but the Russians are too busy robbing this place to fight.
Right.
Anything that's not nailed down, they've set up a market in Belarus, and Russian soldiers are crossing back over into Belarus and selling refrigerators and dishwashers, and they're looting the place. They're more interested in looting the place than they are fighting against the Ukrainians.
Which again, so let's speak to what does that say about Ukraine as a country, that as it's been functioning, versus Russia as a country as it's been functioning up until this point. That the goods available in Ukraine are a special commodity. Are the availability of stuff there that they have is way better than what's in Russia, even though Russia is a much larger country with these huge trading partners and this huge military allegedly. But the good refrigerator you can get in Ukraine, and that's because they were trading with the EU. They were open to the world of liberal democracy. They were engaged in trade with other people, and they weren't bullying anybody in the process. Unlike Russia. Yeah.
And they had a burgeoning middle class.
Right.
That had disposable income.
Right.
And there's hardly any middle class in Russia. So
that's right.
It's oligarchs who covet their money and then they spend it abroad. They launder it in places like London and the south of France and wherever else, or Hvar in Croatia, with these mega yachts and all the rest of it. There's no disposable income. So these soldiers are running across these things because Ukrainians could buy them. They could buy microwaves and flat screen TVs.
Right.
They have disposable income because there's a middle class here.
That's right.
So
that's part of the news that's going to get back to Russia as well. These are where you can cut off media, you can cut off some social media posts, you can limit that kind of stuff. But the stories that come back from phone calls from soldiers to their parents and people calling who have relatives, they're Ukrainians, they're calling their relatives in Russia, that kind of stuff. That's the part that snowballs over time. That's the part that gathers together. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Philip is going to stick with us for the hour, I think. If you're in our chat room, feel free to ask some questions. Johnny Million will keep track of them, and we'll get to those hopefully a little sooner than we normally do, so we can get through those things if they're, and we'll try and keep it as specific as we can with the knowledge that we have, and how it reflects on what's, on the reality on the ground there. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
We're having audio problems.
Okay.
Yeah, the chat says Phil is not as loud as us.
Okay. Yeah, that's
YouTube.
Right. His volume is on my end is turned up as high as it's going to go. So I've been dinking around with it in the process, and there are limits to what I can make happen.
This will either make it better
yes.
or worse. I don't know.
Better. That's good. Yep.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Mm-hmm. That's better.
Is that better?
It is. Yes.
Great. Okay, good.
Yeah.
And at some point, we'll talk about the helicopter strike, and I do want to talk a little bit about the media, if you want to bring that up.
Sure.
Our media, stateside.
Right.
Because I got some bones to pick with certain people.
No doubt. Okay, I'll put that up, and then I'll see if I can. There we go.
I let him get to me a little bit this week, Hal. I saw some of the stuff you were talking about last, which is you're kind of my conduit.
Yeah.
Sometimes for stuff that's being said back in the States. And boy, whew,
dude,
really
there's a in the ultra lefty world, there's the faux lefties like Russell and Jimmy Dore, but then there's the ones that. Like Jacobin and stuff that genuinely view themselves as,
We're back in 20.
Thank you. As, as progressive to the point of communism and that kind of stuff. And there's the Gravel Institute. They have Richard Wolff on and people like that. They're very left-wing. Labor unions, socialized medicine, the whole deal. That's how they view themselves. They did a whole video on how Ukraine is flooded with Nazis.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program.
And had to take it down. They hid it. They made it private. Welcome back to the show. So much going on, so many conversations we had in there. And so, Phil, I have some questions for you about, the media you're seeing over there from here, right? And both your perception and the perception of the people that are here, over there and what they're seeing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I boosted my audio a little bit even more. So
yes, we're doing everything we can, and it's all right. Yep.
Okay, but yeah, you're right. I've been watching some of the direct that's been coming out of our media, and this growing this growing narrative that comes straight from the Kremlin that this place is flooded with Nazis is disgusting. It's really offensive.
It's cruel. It's cruel.
It's cruel. It's cruel, and it's based around two things that the Russians love to batter on about, and that is a guy by the name of Stepan Bandera, who was a Ukrainian nationalist who led a nationalist movement during the Second World War and who fought with the Nazis and was a war criminal. And I argue with my Ukrainian friends quite often that he should not be lionized, but they see him in a very different light. And they also say that his history was manipulated. But millions and millions of Ukrainians also agree with me. I had dinner with one last night who said, yeah, I argue with my family about him.
Sure.
He should not be lionized. And then they like to talk about the Azov Brigade. Even today, actually, they put out a thing saying that the Azov, there was a person that they had kidnapped. They'd taken to Russia from Mariupol. Right. And this person who is on Russian territory, surrounded by Russian soldiers, was put in front of a camera and gave this testimony of how she saw Azov Brigade members bringing munitions into that arts center that was then, blown up, and hundreds of people were killed.
Right.
I mean, they see the Azov everywhere. It was almost becoming a meme and a joke within the Russian social media world, where they were like, are the Azov Brigade in the room now with us, Vladimir?
Right.
Because they were saying they were everywhere.
Yes.
But the fact that it's being picked up by people in the West is very disturbing to me, especially. And I really wouldn't do this unless it was unless this person was spreading these lies.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like airing dirty laundry in public from what is essentially a professional relationship. But I used to be a producer for Lara Logan. when she was at CBS and I was at CBS.
Right.
I was one of her producers, and she has issues.
Yes.
And again, I don't want to air this in public, but I have to address it because some of the stuff that she has been saying is just straight out wrong. She's never been to this country. To my knowledge, she has never been to this country, and yet she is saying openly, repeatedly, that the country is just filled with fascists and Nazis. Well, she's never been here. She has no idea what she's talking about.
Right.
She's regurgitating talking points directly from the GRU. You know, and I expect that. I expect that from Alex Jones. I expect that from some of the crazies. But you know, Laura at one point was a journalist.
Absolutely. I remember her coverage of the Iraq War, and she was a realist about that kind of stuff. And for those of us that, you know, protested against the Iraq War, you know, were active against that part of it. She was one of the voices that was there that was like, this is not good. This is not going the way it should, blah, blah, blah. Now, in retrospect, you could put on your paranoid goggles and look back and go, you know, people like, you know, Chris Hedges or somebody like that, who we look at as almost Chomsky-esque in their critique of the United States and is very left-leaning because of their alleged politics, where he ends up with a show on, you know, there was a story this week about Hedges having a show on RT, and YouTube tears down his show, Emmy Award-winning show, without any warning, and this is an example of censorship. Now, that show was on RT's channel. RT's channel went away. It wasn't targeted towards his show. Their whole business went away because they are a propaganda arm of a state government. And apparently that's fine on YouTube for a time until you start using that to excuse an invasion and declare that you're, you know, denazifying an entire channel or an entire country, and your channel has on it a mix of state hosts, Russian ones, who are parroting that idea, and American hosts who one would hope will eventually, even if they're selling these stories, has to at least go, well, the plan isn't going very well, and there's no real reason to, you know, for this invasion. Like we're against invading countries in an imperialistic way. That's why we were hired to, you know, as American critics in the first place. And then, you know, you have people like, you know, like Lee Camp, who I think would genuinely at some point have gone, it's wrong. The Ukraine war is wrong. But they killed RT America before any of the hosts could do that. That was the point. And Hedges' channel went with it.
Yeah.
He was one of these people who was saying the same story. Right.
Yeah, and RT wouldn't let them do that, though.
Nope.
That's the other thing. So,
well, and, you know, and Hedges, you know, Hedges is one of these people who obviously had a sort of a tacit agreement with, you let me criticize the United States at all fronts, and I will never criticize Vladimir Putin. I will never criticize Russia on channel or off, for that matter, anywhere. Not even on Democracy Now! When he's a guest. And so that's very disturbing when you see that, because I expect that kind of stuff from the Tucker Carlsons of the world. It's shocking. I have to say, it is weird, and a lot of people noticed that even when, you know, when Tucker Carlson went there, people are like, this is a bridge too far. This is odd. This is, you know, to go in on that defense now, especially as bad as it is. The whole, go ahead.
Yeah, and how, you know, I've been thinking about this because I've been working on a vlog for the last week and a half, really, about this, trying to address this. When I saw Laura come on and say the bull that she was saying, I realized that I had to address this. It was overdue time that I had to address this. And unfortunately, the deeper and deeper I get into it, the longer and longer the video is becoming, and the more dense and more complex.
It's a Philip Ittner. It's a Philip Ittner production. I get it. It's, you know,
it's going to be my magnum opus.
That's right. That's right.
But you know, the same guys who are saying there is a legacy of Nazism in Ukraine are not addressing the fact that, okay, you know how many people the NKVD, the Soviet secret police, killed in this country? Either it was the Holodomor, or it was, did you know they killed tens of thousands of Ukrainians as the Germans were advancing?
Yes.
that were in prisons, and they lined them up and shot them all.
Yep.
Estimates are between 10 and at the high end 40, but it's generally thought it's around 20,000 people that they didn't have time to process them because the Germans were coming. So the Soviet NKVD just lined them up, and in the space of 8 days killed tens of thousands of people. Now, This is the country that the dissolution of which Vladimir Putin says was one of the greatest tragedies of the 20th century. So he is supportive of the idea of a Soviet Union. I don't hear anybody talking about how the Russian soldiers are acting like the NKVD and killing Ukrainian citizens and massacring Ukrainians on the territory in present day. But they're happy to go after the whole idea that Ukrainians are Nazis. Because that talking point is being put forward by the information war that the GRU and the Kremlin is conducting.
Right.
But I don't hear anybody talking about the crimes that the Soviets committed here.
Well, here's a good example. Let's take a break because I'll tell you after this, whatever. But as somebody who's been watching kind of a lot of retroactively watching a lot of the stuff around Euromaidan in the 2014 and the ancillary fights between groups when that was happening and the seeding of, Russian dissent within the country.
I was there.
Yeah, exactly. We'll talk about that when we come back. Yeah, it's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. WCPT820.com is a great site for listening to all your favorite liberal and progressive talkers. We'll be back right after this.
So I think I fixed the audio, Hal, a little bit at least.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But you're tired from driving all night, and I'm congested.
3 questions so far.
Kind of bummed out, so... both of our energies are a little low today, huh?
It's a good match. I'm holding it together. I just have to make sure that I don't
I'm so bummed about this whole narrative that is gaining traction, and I'm worried about it.
See, I don't think it is. I think it's actually no. I absolutely don't. I think that the fact is that the crazier the people who are associated with this now. Even like the edges of those people are having to pretend. Like I said, the Gravel Institute, which is a very left-wing organization. I mean, they would consider themselves at best democratic socialists, if not full-on communists, and are ran on the idea that it should be the 100% squad is a good start, and then we move them to the left. That's the Gravel Institute, and they do a bunch of stuff about it's largely about anti-imperialism and anti-American stuff because they can't separate the two. It's odd they never do anti-Chinese or anti-Russian imperialism. Yes. Yeah. We can hear you.
Yep.
Chicago? You say something?
I'm coming back in 10 seconds now.
Excellent. Okay, thanks. They had to take their video down. They hid it. They put it on private. I recorded it. I found it.
A quick promo, Hal.
Good.
Welcome back to the House Sparks Radio program, Megaworldwide, Chicago's Press Talk, WCPT. Woo! Yeah!
So, welcome back to the show. Again, we talk about sometimes on the show, and our guest is Philip Ittner. Johnny Million's with us as well, and he's looking in the chat for questions that you might have in there. And Aaron, thank you.
So far.
Excellent. One of the concerning things is this narrative about because when the Azov Battalion was formed, before it was enveloped into the government years ago, it had out of I think 190 people in it or something when it initially formed, 10 to 20%, depending on who you asked, had been involved in neo-Nazi stuff or what have you. In the same way that there are National Guardsmen here who were in jail and were part of the Peckerwoods, and you wouldn't know this if you didn't see their tattoos. And that's just part of life. That's instead of saying that's going to happen in any country, and that's certainly no reason for the people to be attacked by a foreign power. They've been trying to use this as a way to buoy up an excuse, which is the Azov Battalion, which, they're like, it was added into the military. Everything was added into the military. As they took in all these militias, it's somewhere between keep your friends close and your enemies closer and keep an eye on these folks and start brooming the bad guys out. There we have the modern Ukrainian military, which, by the way, is winning. That is a strategy that was worth it. But of the 44 million people that are the population of Ukraine, we are supposed to believe that Vladimir Putin is justified in attacking this country and strafe bombing apartment buildings, blowing up maternity wards, booby trapping dead bodies, attacking Chernobyl, and possibly, creating a ripple effect nuclear holocaust across the country, even before he might threaten to nuke the world, because of somewhere in the order of 36 people in this country. That idea alone is offensive enough. Now, I will say this, that much like the Jan 6 coup, which was crap and was run by morons, thank God, the people pushing the Nazi narrative in Ukraine are on a hard fade over here. The extremists that are on the vlog world, they definitely are jumping in the in the Alex Jones world. There's a few of those hangers on, but even he has started distancing himself from this as the Ukrainians are winning, because one thing you can always count on Alex Jones and all these the dudes around him, one thing you can count on him for is chasing macho. And the fact that Ukrainians are winning, they can't not go, well, they really are kicking ass. And again, these are people like Glenn Beck, who famously took a picture for one of his books in a Nazi outfit, because as much as he was like making a point about the 1984ing and his, in this book he was selling, and he was trying to shock people into buying his book, because he's basically an early 90s shock jock that found another industry. But in selling this, this visual idea, as much as Nazis bad, they did kind of dress cool. That's the Glenn Beck world, and that's Alex Jones's problem. That's and increasingly, when you look at people like Laura Logan, people like Jimmy Dore, people like Russell Brand, even Russell is starting to stiff arm that a little bit. So it's
I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, I keep track of the more extreme ones, so it might it look like there's more of them than there are, but they frankly are not. And but I do want to say, let's get to the questions, because I know they have them. So,
but you're right. There are Nazis here, but and there are fascists here, but it's a very, very small percentage. They've been weeded out. They didn't win in the elections, and in addition to that, unfortunately, there's a line of communication coming out of Ukraine that I think is unfortunate, is misunderstood in the West. When the Ukrainians say we are nationalists,
yes,
we alarm bells go off in the West,
right?
Because we hear nationalists and we think guys, militants who are, my country is better than yours.
Red Skull,
and right, yeah, nationalists. When Ukrainians say nationalists, they actually mean a nation state, which they have never had.
Right.
And for the first time in their history, have a real chance of having a proper nation.
The only reason...
When they say I'm a nationalist, it means I'm a Ukrainian who believes that my country should be a nation.
The only reason Americans view the word nationalist in that regard in a negative sense is because we have been taking for granted that we can exist as a nation since basically our founding. Since the Revolutionary War, the ability for us to exist in the world has never come into question because of our geographic safety and the soundness of our government. You don't have to be a nationalist over here because we don't have to convince anybody we're a nation. The Ukrainians have to. They've been constantly trying to convince not just Russia, but the rest of the world that they are a nation worth salvaging, worth helping, worth working with, and that means something wholly different. Yes.
I've said it before, I'll say it again. I feel like I am witnessing the 1776
That's
moment.
right.
I really do.
And you are. And that's when nationalism has worth. And you will see it show up. By the way, you'll see it show up in the right wing over here when you also accompanied by, we have to take our country back, and they're destroying our country, and our country won't exist anymore, and we don't have a country because we don't have a border, all those kind of things. That nationalism and that nationalism talk comes up from whenever people feel like the existence of their country is called into question. And that's exactly
what Vladimir Putin launches an invasion and openly says that Ukraine is not a proper country because, of course, Russia, as the great Slavic, leader country, gets to be the arbiter of what is a Slavic country and what isn't. When he openly says, "I'm going to destroy this idea of a Ukraine as a country because they're just lesser Slavs, they're just Russians who don't live on Russian territory," but we'll change that. They literally. The Ukrainians feel that they are fighting for their sheer existence because, quite frankly, they probably are.
Of course they are.
So I could go on and on about this, but I love talking to the questions. So let's
Johnny, what's our first one up? Yeah.
Sure. From Karen Webster in the chat. She asked, "Did the Russians really give themselves radiation poisoning?"
Oh, in Chernobyl, right? So.
Yes, apparently.
Yeah. They do. Okay. So Chernobyl obviously was the site of one of the worst nuclear meltdowns in world history. And the ground and area around it were viewed as dangerously toxic forever. They're permanent areas where they had to like roll the soil and pour cement and then roll the soil again. And other areas they just didn't bother to do it because the Russians ran it at the time. And our biggest problem with Chernobyl was not the fact that it was a nuclear meltdown on the scale of like Fukushima Daiichi, but that they had all the means and wherewithal to do something about it, quite frankly, after the fact, to clean it up, to change the site, to do all the things you do when you had, like in America with 3 Mile Island, for example, and they didn't. Because they don't care. They weren't even securing their nuclear weapons properly. That's our biggest fear in the world right now, is a dirty bomb controlled by Pakistani militants or Al-Qaeda or one of these groups that comes from a satellite Kazakhstan chunk of the former USSR that, like, oh my God, look what we found down in this vault under the ground. Another 9 warheads that nobody has bothered to keep listed, right? So they started digging foxholes in the Red Forest. They started digging trenches in irradiated ground where the Russians initially had only effectively poured like 6 feet of dirt over stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah, I've been to Chernobyl. I was at Chernobyl in 2001, and you had to, as you left, you had to go through a system where you put your 2 hands on a radiometer and it measured your radiation levels. And I was there for all of about 6 hours. And it was a press tour to mark, I think, the 15th anniversary of the accident. And I was there for maybe 6 hours, and we were told by Ukrainian authorities, you get 6 hours in there. That's it.
Right.
That's it. And it's a hard time. You got a hard out. You're in. You go to Pripyat, which is a weird, eerie ghost town. Which people were. You watch the miniseries. It's really disturbing. They literally marched in and said, "You got 3 hours. Get all your stuff, and we're getting you all out of here." So you walk into this town, and it's like, in 1986 Soviet Union. I mean, all the murals are still up, and they're still. Schoolyard.
It's frozen in time.
Eerie and weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were told you get 6 hours. That's it. Hard out. Get out of there. We're going to measure you because even 6 hours inside the exclusion zone, which is what they called it, is risky. And so I got measured, and they said, yes, you've been irradiated, but nothing no more so than an X-ray or something. So don't worry about it. You can go back to your hotel in Kiev.
Right. Yeah. But if you stayed any longer, and if you were digging in the ground and laying around in it, oh my God! Like and the fact that
shows you how much they don't care about their soldiers. How much they don't care about their soldiers.
Right. I will say the latest news that just came out of apparently Russia has threatened to end cooperation with the International Space Station. To wit, I would say, boo friggity who. Goodbye to bad rubbish. I don't like it's at this point. They are an untrustworthy partner in that circumstance anyways. I don't believe in that anybody is going to be wanting to send their astronauts to Kazakhstan for a launch anytime soon. And we don't need it. We don't.
No.
We have 2 different companies between Musk and Bezos that and then alongside NASA have the ability to rotate launches forever. We don't, honest to God, it's like the reason Russia was involved in a lot of things, and I honestly believe Russia thought they were involved because they were needed. And I think to some degree the CCP believes this about itself too. And whereas as far as production of goods, China definitely gained a ton of ground in the last 20 years and was like, oh crap, to get out of there and move our factories elsewhere is going to be a tooth pull. It's not impossible, but it's a big deal. So we have to play nice with China. We need them. But the need meter, once you crest past a certain point, if they attack Taiwan or they back Russia, or quite frankly, the Xinjiang genocide, once they reach that arc in it, that needs drops down to a some people want, but most people don't. And Russia's been under the impression for a very long time, and I find it weird that they were needed in this process with the International Space Station. And
when we discontinued the shuttle,
right?
Yeah,
but that was a choice.
Their space program is nothing to sniff at. I mean, it's not bad, but
right.
But
if
that's the cost of ending this war and saving tens of thousands of Ukrainian and Russian lives, okay,
Well, also my feeling about it overall is that we discontinued the space shuttle and moved to another thing, and we incorporated the fact that the Russians had a space program into this because everybody was playing on a relatively level playing field, and they weren't invading places, and they'd kind of reached a stalemate at one point, and Crimea dusted that up, but that wasn't the space program's fault, which is totally tied to their military in ways that people accuse NASA of being in the United States that it isn't, but on a total scale over there. We didn't really need it. It gave us an option while we retired the space shuttle. That's all.
And
we could have. That's right. We could have kept it online and kept going. We could have kept servicing the space shuttle for another 10 years and made it drag on if we wanted to. But it was a great pause, and it helped us do this thing. It wasn't an imperative. And if they'd have done this at that time, we wouldn't have taken that choice then either. And they are under the impression that you have no space station, you have no thing without us. And they don't recognize that this is the world's sandbox. And and I think that's a big wake up in a modern era for liberal democracies and the rest of the world, that's the kind of line we can now, with the alliance of Western democracies and NATO being reinforced and a belief in democracy and the powers of it, like where basically all the democratic countries that took it for granted, again, didn't use the word nationalism in their own state because it was embarrassing, and they stiff-armed the idea because you shouldn't have to, are suddenly waking up to the fact that unless we're working towards democracy, especially in our own countries, there are people actively working against it who would like to bring it down. And these folks need to know that the world sandbox, the monetary system, all the good things, the modern society, the ability to build a middle class like Ukraine was doing, the ability to have creature comforts and engage in trade and all these things are predicated on the idea that you're not a lone wolf psychopath opening fire on every possible area that you could go into. And we always have to check ourselves. All right, is this the day he snaps and goes postal? You don't get to play around in the normal sandbox of the rest of the world if you're going to behave like that. We got to take a break, and we're going to come back and got a couple more questions. And for Philip Ittner, follow him at Philip Ittner, 1L, 2 T's on Twitter, and you'll get links to his vlog while he's in Ukraine currently. We'll be back right after this.
Yeah, I monitor the Russians and the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they always do this. They always say, you don't respect us, you don't respect us, you don't respect us. To which my response is, well, then do something that
respectable.
Respect.
Yes. Of course we don't.
If you do stuff.
Yeah. Yes, it is radio today. Right.
Worthy of respect. My earphones died on me. I've got another pair. I'm going to grab them.
Okay.
What are the questions, Johnny? Or I guess we'll wait.
I'm not going to tell you until we get back on the air.
He's
yeah. Let's wait.
Coming
he's
back.
You'll answer them, and then you won't say anything when we're on the air.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to hear more from Phil. They think that Hal answered that last question.
I did. Yeah.
And I am happy, you are happy. Let us be happy together. Whether the weather is cloudy or sunny, I will always be your funny honey bunny. I am lucky, you are lucky. Let us get lucky together. Whether the weather is cloudy or breezy, I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. 'Cause isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you? Chugga chugga choo choo woo woo. I am smiling, you are smiling. Let us smile together. Whether the weather is cloudy or stormy, I will still be there in the morning. I'll be right by your side in the morning. I'll make you breakfast in the morning. I hope that you like cereal.
Yay!
We play that now. Yes, we do. We now play that for Philip so that because he enjoys it so much as well.
Hold on 1 second, folks.
I hear you just fine. Just for the record, he can't hear us. I think for a moment. So
what's happened? Just give me a quick
you're
second.
good. It's okay. You're good. Fear not.
There we go.
So there you go. Yep, we heard you just fine the whole time. So it was just you hearing source out. It's okay.
I'm gonna go back to the computer.
That's okay. Dude, I know I know the issues that come with trying to get headphones to work on anything like that. So I was saying that we play the happiest.
I needed that so much this
Exactly.
week.
We now it's now Philip's theme song on the show. We got 2 more questions, and I want to make sure that people get answers from Phil on these things. What's the next one, Johnny?
Okay, so from Jim the Geek, he says there's speculation that Russia's pulling back in order to clear troops from areas that will be chemically bombed. What do you know about this?
I mean, the fact that the Russians have openly been talking. I mean, on Friday, I was monitoring the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they were putting out repeated accusations at the UN about how the Ukrainians have a bioweapon and the big dastardly Americans, which are behind everything, of course, are pushing the Ukrainians to use a chemical weapon. So they're definitely, when the Russians do stuff like this, it's to set the stage for a potential. They like to do that and then say, "Well, we told you so." Instead, when they are actually the ones doing this, they like their false flags. Putin loves false flags. I mean, think of the fact that he came to power in 1999 by killing 300 of his own people in a series of apartment building bombings that were clearly done by his own security forces. So this is a guy who likes to do a false flag. He arguably did it in Georgia in 2008 by goading Saakashvili into attacking special forces troops. And he just happened to have 3, I think they were divisions of armored forces on the other side of the one tunnel that led into Georgia for the Georgian War in 2008. What a happy coincidence that was.
Right.
That Saakashvili would take the bait and attack some Russian Spetsnaz who were in South Ossetia.
What are the odds?
What are the odds? He likes false flags. So this leads me to a topic that I think we need to talk about, and I don't know if it'll come up in a question. And I'll try to make this really, really quick. But this thing with the Hind helicopters attacking the fuel depot inside of Russia. If it is truly the Ukrainians who did it, then Mazel Tov. It was a legitimate target. And if they were able to infiltrate into Russia for 20 miles and hit that target and then return to Ukrainian-held territory, which if I did the math, the Hind helicopter moves at a rate, its top speed is 200 miles an hour. This is 20 some odd miles to this place, Belgorod, which is where this fuel dump is. That would have been 6 minutes in, strike the fuel dump, 6 minutes out. You're going to tell me that the Russians didn't have time to respond to those helicopters? If it was the Ukrainians, they should say it was the Ukrainians. But they're prevaricating about it for some reason. I think it's because it wasn't. I think it was the Russians that did it to themselves. We also know that they lobbed a couple of missiles in the region as well that clearly came from Russian-held territory. So they are. I am afraid. My concern, and I don't like speculating about stuff, especially not in war, but I have to say I am concerned that they are setting the precedent that they're setting the precedent that the Ukrainians are willing and able to take the war to Russian territory.
Right.
And if there is a bio or chemical attack on Russian territory, they will have set the pretense already that, hey, the Ukrainians are now attacking, Russian territory, and suddenly there's a chemical or bio attack in Russia.
That's right.
I'm concerned about it. I'm concerned more that the bio or chemical attack might happen in Russia than I am afraid that it'll happen here in Ukraine, because then they will be able to ratchet things up. They will use assets that they heretofore have not used, like their high altitude strategic bombers, and they can carpet bomb any number of targets here within Ukraine, and the death toll will just go through the roof.
Right.
So I'm worried about that. I hope that's not the case.
And rightly so. And I'm totally with you, by the way. I believe it was a false flag as well. I think those are captured helicopters that they got when they came in and got one of the airports. They bugged out of an airport.
We didn't see any insignias on those.
Right.
Those are M124. The Hind. You remember the Hind from the Rambo movie? Everybody knew it.
Right.
There were no.
They're Russian anyways.
Insignias.
Right.
The Russians have those.
The other thing is,
has those.
Yes. And the Ukrainians, know full well that the Russians have been having trouble getting fuel to the supply lines to get fuel into the country are cut basically anyways. The Russians are having a terrible time, and that fuel isn't going anywhere. So Russia knows this as well. So what do? Blow it up and then say, well, this is a false flag. You turn a failure of logistics into a propaganda win. I can't get the fuel out, so blow it up and say it was them. We'll use that. We'll make use of this fuel somehow, and it will work.
Also, there's a town very close to the Ukrainian border that is now called Volgograd, but it is one of the hero towns of the former Soviet Union. Used to be known by a name Stalingrad.
Right.
That's within conceivable striking distance of the Ukrainians, and that would just incense the Russians no end. And any dissent against a war in Ukraine would be crushed, and also any of the other nation states that are just dying to jump ship, or to switch sides, and support Russia would also say, oh, look, the Ukrainians did this chemical attack because, of course, the Pentagon forced them to do it.
Right. It's a proxy war. It's got to be a proxy war. These people couldn't want to be free on their own.
It's the Pentagon behind anything. Now, look, I hope to God I'm completely wrong about this. I have had other Russia experts and military experts go back and forth with me about this, because it was a legitimate. They have fuel issues and they have supply issues.
Yep.
But it's something about it stinks. It really.
Well, and that's the problem Putin will always have, is that because he likes false flags and because he's used them, and there's so much record of it, and it's almost a hack premise for him, that it's hard for him to sell these things the way he used to. And the U.S. military and modern social media is a totally different animal when you're dealing with creating these kind of predicates. You can't, if people can, tweet about, the Reichstag, you have a different situation. If people around it are putting up video and going, wait a minute, that plane, you know what I mean? It doesn't work the way it used to.
Wow, and that's an interesting analogy.
Hence the primary issue with him shutting down the internet and starting to use, Chinese AI to broom dissent from the internet internally so that they can control the message for one of these things. But it still doesn't work because it doesn't work in China. They're having riots in China right now because of the lockdowns. Like, a lot of it's not getting out to the rest of the world, but it's all over Chinese social media in a way that it was never possible a year ago. And it's too much for them to broom. So the idea that China's got their back in this situation and will help them, create this predicate is nonsense. Now, we got one more question. We got 2 minutes, and I want to make sure you get it.
Why would the Ukrainians do a chemical or biological weapon when they know that the repercussions of that would be
exactly
horrible? They're already winning, so why escalate? If it happens on Russian soil, it will not be at Ukraine.
It's the Russians, right? Johnny, what was the last question we got?
The last one is from and I'm confidently gonna say his name is Mike Kirkabakabu.
Okay.
And he says that he heard Putin is hiding in a bunker, which is scary. Does Philip have any insight on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about that. Actually, it's funny in a dark humor way. There's a very famous internet cartoon that has never been political before and is very popular in Russia. And that they address that this silly little cartoon has suddenly become political, and Russian audiences adore it. It's on social media and on YouTube and whatnot, TikTok, all the rest of it. And the little animated character, she goes to talk to Putin and try to tell him not to go to the war, to stop the war in Ukraine, and are told that no, he's in a bunker. So I mean, he has been living in a bunker. He's been living a very
in isolation.
Isolated life for the last 2 years. He's definitely afraid of COVID, as we see in those meetings where he's 50 feet away from the nearest person at the table. And in addition to that, we're hearing all this talk about doctors.
Hold on, Philip. We're out of time. Folks can listen.
Thanks, everybody.
It's okay. We'll continue at the end of this online for a couple minutes so we can finish that because it was a chat question anyways. Thanks for being here, Philip, and thanks for Johnny Million for being here. We'll see you next week, Chicago. Thanks, Chicago.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cheers. There we go. And so
are you doing the Trump rally tonight, Hal?
Yes. Yes,
and
I
thought my psychological state was at risk.
No, actually, like I said, I find great solace in how bad the wind down is happening in Trump world. And it's like watching Putin. If Putin came out and every time you saw him, he wasn't at the end of a big long table. If he wasn't in his weird little teleprompter studio desk room away from everybody else, if he was meeting elbow to elbow with advisors, if he was, talking in a way that was more cryptic than overt, you'd be worried. I'd be way more worried about Vladimir Putin if his military advisors were all huddled together. But the fact that he's isolated from them can't be lost on them. They're still human beings. And this is how the Russian government changes. It's how it seemingly almost always has been, except the couple of times when the United States has sort of held their hand through it. Seriously. From Gorbachev to Yeltsin.
I made the point in this Magnus Opus a vlog that I'm still slogging through that you can say what you want about Ukraine, and but to argue that it's not a democracy is ignoring the fact that Ukraine, in its short 30-year history since the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, has had 3 peaceful transfers of power in free and fair elections, arguably a fourth. And Russia, in its 1,500-year history, has never had
a one
peaceful transfer of power that wasn't part of a monarchy in a direct bloodline succession.
Right.
So you tell me which is the democracy and which is the fascist state.
That's right. Johnny, I don't want to.
These stories about Putin are really weird. Even some are really eccentric, like the idea that he bathes in blood from reindeer antlers. I mean,
that's
the
hilarious.
Concept that would be even remotely possibly true just shows you how cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs that guy is.
Well, and again, so one of the big fears about COVID specifically is even with a mild case, studies show that some people's brains shrink with it. And it's not ubiquitous across, it's a secondary effect in some cases. And the part that worries me about COVID more than anything else when the conversation comes up is the fact that it did in fact originate in China, like blow off the whole lab leak wet market, any of that stuff. They were aware of it before everybody else was. Russia has a great relationship with China, more open and better than ours, arguably. I mean, it's
because they have an enemy in common.
That's right. They share that enemy, and Xi Jinping has a zero COVID policy, and Vladimir Putin seems to fear this more than polonium. That's a rough one.
Yeah, look, when the Putin regime ends, which inevitably it will, I think we will find out that they were hit by COVID far worse than what anybody knows.
Yeah, no question.
Out in the provinces, I mean, we have no idea how bad they were hit, but I bet you they were hit a lot harder.
Statistically, so China, for example, Shanghai is completely locked down right now. Somewhere in the order of 50 million people in China are directly affected by lockdowns in the ancillary areas around Shanghai and out through the rest of it. And in elder care facilities, there have been people posting online about how many hearses are showing up in front of the place, where there's literally a traffic jam of hearses taking bodies out of these places, which makes total sense in a population that size, in a area where the disease is, all over the place, where the Chinese vaccine has been fairly terrible. It's not as well thought out, and it's not as functional. It doesn't work against the other variants, so it basically became useless the minute Delta showed up. And how many deaths do you think China has said have happened in elder care facilities around the Shanghai area? Zero.
Oh,
not even.
That's
right.
Like saying Putin won the last presidential election with 104%.
Right.
Turnout.
Zero. I mean, at least China has had less than 5,000 deaths from COVID total, according to their official numbers. They stopped.
At least give us a number that we can at least pretend to believe it. But
they
zero.
Stopped counting numbers in December of 2019. Period. End of story. And statistically speaking, if they are anything even remotely close to every other country as far as population density, transmissibility of the disease, availability of treatments and vaccines over the time scale that it has come out, there is no way that less than 17 million people have died of COVID in China alone. Russia has similar BS numbers. They don't have near the population, but they do have packed city centers and a lot of elbow-to-elbow life. And,
you bet they do.
And that also puts them in a situation where you're talking about a minimum of 1 million people.
And there's cities and towns that are east of the Urals are so sparse and so distant from one another that if you did have a massive breakout, you could absolutely hide it.
Yes. Well, I mean, and the lifespan, the life expectancy of everybody there is so bad anyways.
Because of alcoholism and their ways, their bad habits.
You could swear, that's true. The sad part in terms of, China and some of your more harder regimes, and even some, I would argue, in the right wing on our side of the pond, is this idea that, you can't have an omelet without breaking some eggs, and you can't save everybody, and you got to cull the herd now and again, and some people just aren't going to survive, and people who are a drag on society are it's the same excuse they use for they shrug off some opioid deaths the same way, were you really going to salvage that person? You know what I mean? They do that kind of thought. Well, China doesn't. We do that. We have people in our country who do that on a material level. And emotionally kind of have to sell it.
Yeah.
In China, they don't have to sell it at all. They don't have to sell it at all. Yeah.
And it's like a very wise guy on Russian studies actually opened my eyes to a thing years ago when we talked about the mass deportations that happened during the Soviet Union and all the Gulag system and all the intellectuals that Stalin was afraid of that he sent out to break rocks. Well, some of these guys were atomic scientists. Mm-hmm. That's not the best use of their abilities. Breaking rocks is not the best. So letting these people be culled because of COVID. What if one of those guys was the guy who had in the back of his brain the cure for cancer?
Right. Yes,
but
that's why.
Told him because screw it, right?
Yeah, right. What difference does it make? He's in a certain age.
Thinking.
Yeah, he's in a certain age range, and like statistically speaking, he's not going to be around for a while. And new people, new ideas. So what the heck? And that's that's the problem
he's
with
the guy that had he's the guy that had the nascent idea for the perpetual motion engine that
right. Yeah, it runs on water. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. I mean, the loss of human potential that's caused by a disease from the dark ages to tuberculosis to the Spanish flu to now is always a factor. And when you have monarchies or theocracies where they view everybody else as popcorn humans, one is no more important than the other, then you don't care. You're never
If you're
gonna.
not in the ruling class, then
you don't matter, right? And it's heartbreaking. Candy, thank you for the super chat. By the way, I'm gonna let Johnny Million go, and I'm gonna go as well because we're out of time.
Right.
So
I love talking to you, Hal.
Yeah,
we'll do it again. And if you want to do it during the week, we can do that as well. I'll try to get that Steph Miller, and thank you for keeping your shirt on. Get Steph to get me on one of these.
I will. I'll get it. I will.
But I love
do the hard press.
Your fans are the best. Your fans are the best. Thank you so
yes.
much.
So, Sparklers, folks who watch the show.
The only reason I haven't posted any vlogs is because I'm working on this really big one to answer this issue of like there are Nazis everywhere and they're not.
Right. Also, Midas Touch would be a great place for you to go to.
I reached out to them. I didn't get a response. So
I'll do it. I'll do it again. Also, Randy Rhodes and Nicole Sandler. Yeah, I think that's a great thing.
One of the reasons I think I've been in a bit of a slump and a bit of a mood is mixed with this whole thing of like this messaging that I see, and I'm glad to hear that you think it's dying off, and I'm glad to hear that.
It totally is.
But also this feeling that I'm not getting my voice out enough. So thank you, Sparkles, for listening to me. I appreciate you letting me appropriate your audience, Hal.
Yes.
But if anybody knows anybody out there who would like to talk about this, I will talk to large groups, small groups, whatever. I want people, because I know this topic so well. It bothers me that people have parachuted in here and are now being taken as experts on this country when really they're not.
Right.
And I've been studying this place for a quarter of a century, and I know a fair few bits about it. And if I can get my voice out a little bit more, I think I'll sleep a little bit easier at night, despite the air raid side.
The chat here are amazing in both their reach and their their resourcefulness. So I have no doubt that they'll help spread the word and get you out there as well and keep, because what happens is you got to kind of, just like with my show, like you got to, you're like, I told them, no, you got to tell them again. 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 And then eventually they're like, all right, we'll break through. We got to pay attention to this. And that's always how it works.
I think, look, I've been in here. I've been in country for since the beginning, and I'm going to have good days. I'm going to have bad days. I'm going to have slumps, and I'm going to have heights.
Sure.
I think I've just had a slump this week. So
you're all good.
We'll dude. I'll take tomorrow off, and then we'll get right at them.
I insist. All right. I'll let you go. Take care. Johnny Million, you're awesome.
Okay.
Bye, everybody. Cheers, chat room. Bye.
Bye-bye.